I never expected to hear those words from my own mother. Disappointment. A total failure. Completely worthless. I'm giving you 3 days, I said. Because this house isn't yours anymore. They stayed silent because deep down, they knew. I had paid for every brick of it. Pushpin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. My name is Olivia Smith. I'm 29 years old, and I had built a life that most people admired. Every morning at 6 a.m., my alarm would go off. I'd get out of bed, work out, make my smoothie, take a quick shower, and be out the door by 7:30. I'd fight through traffic to get to my office, an urban planning, architecture, and history firm located almost outside the city. My coworkers often used me as the example to follow. I had landed a job at Columbia University's Architecture and Planning Division. And in just 3 years, I'd been promoted 3 times. My boss, Amelia Hernandez, had taken me under her wing. Well done, Olivia Smith. You're going places, she would say during our monthly meetings. Your attention to detail, the care you put into your work, your communication with clients, it's all exceptional. But no one could have predicted what would happen in my own home. A year ago, I finally bought the house I'd always dreamed of, a beautiful 5-bedroom home with classic design, valued at $750,000. Living alone had always been my biggest dream. But only a year after moving in, my mom, dad, and sister also moved in with me. My dad, Oliver, my mom, Isla, and my sister, Ava. My dad's successful architecture firm had gone bankrupt for the first time. And my mom said, "It's just temporary, we'll only stay for a few days." But a whole year passed, and they were still in my house. And I was paying for everything. The bills, the groceries, even their phone plans and car insurance. They weren't contributing at all. Not even to basic household expenses. My dad kept saying he was sending out resumes, but no jobs ever called back. My mom stayed home all day. My sister Ava had just graduated from college and left her dorm to move in with us. She was about to start working soon. When she came home from college, they threw a lovely little welcome for her. Of course. I was at work. When I came home, I'd eat my dinner, go to my room, and get back to my workload. Next Tuesday, I had a very important presentation. One that could get me promoted even further. It was with a very famous client, for a multi-million-dollar project. My boss Amelia had entrusted it to me. Land this, and something even bigger is coming your way, she said, before leaving home. I checked my hair in the mirror one last time. Then turned toward my family eating breakfast in the kitchen. Big day today, guys. I said cheerfully. They didn't even look up. Good luck, they muttered, and kept eating. I quietly walked out the door and got in my car. A part of me was disappointed. But I shrugged it off. Today was about my future. What I didn't know was, this day would change my future forever. The presentation went better than I could have dreamed. The client was engaged, asked questions. At the end, he nodded, smiled, and shook my hand. Through the meeting room window, I saw Amelia give me a thumbs up. As I walked out, the client's assistant shook my hand and said, "You clearly worked hard on this, Ms. Olivia. We'll be in touch." After seeing them off, Amelia called me into her office. She smiled as soon as I walked in. "You did an amazing job, Olivia. The rest of the day is yours. You've earned some rest." I was buzzing with excitement. I couldn't wait to share the news with someone. Naturally, the first people I thought of were my family. Maybe this time, they'd actually be proud. It was 1:30 p.m. when I left work. They weren't expecting me home until the evening, so it was the perfect time for a surprise. Maybe we'd go out for dinner. Celebrate. As a family, I got in the car and drove home. When I pulled into the driveway, both their cars were there. No surprise. I quietly stepped inside. As I walked toward the living room, ready to share the good news, I heard my mother's voice. It was coming from the bedroom. She was on a video call, and her voice echoed through the house. The person she was talking to was Jack Brown, my dad's friend. He had his own architecture office too. Just as I was about to enter the room, I noticed a shift in her tone, and I stopped. "Hold on a second," she said, muting herself briefly, then unmuted and continued, and then she said it, a disappointment. A complete failure. She doesn't deserve anything. Her words hit me like a punch to the throat. I froze in the hallway, unable to move forward or back. "She makes good money, sure," my mother went on, but her tone was full of disdain. "But what kind of life is that? 29 and still single. She doesn't see anything beyond her work. She lets us stay here, but expects us to be grateful like she's doing us a huge favor. When someone asks what we do, saying our daughter supports us, we live in her house, do you know how humiliating that is?" Ava, on the other hand, is just like me. She's getting married soon, starting work in a month. We're going out for breakfast tomorrow, Friday morning, and we're going shopping for a dress to wear that day. They hadn't told me any of that. I thought, why didn't I know about these plans? She might not have gone to a fancy school like Olivia, my mom said, but she studied something decent and she's about to start her career. Just then, the bathroom door inside the room opened. My dad's voice came through. "Who are you talking to again?" My mom answered. "Jack. We're talking about the girls." As my dad sat on the couch, he asked, "Did you tell him about Olivia? That she might be going places?" He said it in a hushed voice, but my mom immediately dismissed it. "What's there to say, Jack? How far could she really go? Let's not exaggerate. She's not like our Ava. All she cares about is money. And work," my mom scoffed. "Absolutely," my dad agreed. "There are two good things about living here," she said. "She doesn't bother us, and we get to save a lot of money. In a year or two, we'll have enough saved to buy our own place." "Yeah," my dad said, chuckling. "Always walking on eggshells is exhausting. And those cars she bought us last New Year's? What a joke," my mom said mockingly. "She was just showing off how rich she is. No taste at all." "If it were me, I'd have picked a sports car," added my dad. "Those cars had cost me $64,000. I'd spent months researching to get the best deals and safest models. For now, let's just keep going like this," my dad said casually. "We need her money more than she needs us. No husband, no kids, she's got no one." They kept talking, but I couldn't take it anymore. I had no strength left to listen. I quietly stepped back. Without being noticed, I slipped out, got into my car, and sat in the seat. But those words kept echoing in my head, a failure. A useless disappointment. She doesn't deserve anything. I don't even remember when I pulled over and sat on a bench. As I drove, the past year replayed in my mind like a movie. For the first time, I saw my family for who they really were. Part of me said, go back and tell them to their face. But the other part, it was confused, furious, and heartbroken. When they moved in, I welcomed them with open arms. Prepared their rooms, made sure everything was perfect. Because, that's what a good daughter does, right? I had always been there for them. When my mom needed money, I gave it. When my sister asked for help, I was there. But now, how could a sister who did nothing be their pride and joy? Why wasn't I enough? As night fell, I was still sitting on that bench by the sea. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. When I looked at my phone, I saw a message from my boss. Congratulations, Olivia, you closed the deal. Come in tomorrow, we'll discuss your new position. Yes, the house was registered in my name. It was mine. While my mom, dad, and sister were sitting comfortably inside, I was the one out here. If I wanted to, I could have them move out immediately, but that thought stirred a strange guilt inside me. One single question echoed in my mind: what would starting from zero feel like? The numbers, my savings, the house's value. I could walk away from all of this with minimal damage. Quietly, that night, I checked into a hotel. I bought a laptop and immediately started crunching numbers, what I needed to do, the next steps. I mapped out everything in detail. The next morning, I called my boss Amelia and told her I wouldn't be coming to work that day. She was understanding, though I could hear a slight unease in her voice. Then, I called my financial advisor, Wilson. I got an appointment at 10 a.m. and headed to his office. IT was located inside a 15-story building. I briefly explained the situation. You want to liquidate some of your investments and sell your current home, is that correct? He clarified, yes. I'd like to understand both the market value and the tax implications. I replied that he reviewed my finances quickly and nodded in agreement. You're in a strong financial position. Let me say first, your home's location is currently very favorable to sellers on the market. And the state you're moving to, he asked. Montana, I said. It's so beautiful and peaceful, I added. Wilson nodded. When I left the office, I had a clear report in hand about my financial situation. Wilson also recommended a real estate agent named Natalie, someone who worked with private clients and had experience with quick, discreet sales. Soon as I got into my car, I called Natalie. Hello, Ms. Olivia, I was actually expecting your call, she said. Wilson told me about you. I understand you want a discreet and fast sale. I can come by your house today to take a look, she added. No, not today, I replied quickly. My family is home and I don't want them to know. They're going shopping tomorrow, so sometime around noon could work. Whose name is on the house? Natalie asked. They're not the owners. The deed is under my name only, I said. Perfect, that makes things much easier, Natalie replied. My next step was to meet with a lawyer. Discretion and speed were important to me, so I needed to finalize the process as soon as possible. After examining the deed, the lawyer said, if the house is solely in your name, then the right to sell it is entirely yours. If they refuse to leave, we might have to initiate a legal eviction process. But since the house is registered under your name, that likely won't be necessary. I left the lawyer's office, quickly got into my car, and drove home. My parents had gone out shopping for clothes for tomorrow. My sister was probably with her boyfriend. I entered the house quietly and went straight to my room. I immediately began packing my personal belongings. All important documents were placed into a secure bag, my birth certificate, passport, insurance policies, property papers. Then my jewelry and valuables. I packed them all into a suitcase. That would be easy to take back to the hotel. I also grabbed the memory boxes sitting on my desk. Just then, my phone rang. It was Ava. Hey, sis, you didn't come home last night, she said. Dad mentioned it. I had a few things to take care of, so I couldn't make it, I replied. My voice sounded strange. Is something wrong? She asked. We agreed to meet at a cafe. I wasn't going to tell her everything, just a part of it. I parked the car and entered the cafe. It was very crowded, which was a good thing. I sat at a table facing the door, waiting, and soon Ava walked in. She looked tired. What's wrong? I asked directly. Mom, you can guess. She's furious, she said. I looked her in the eyes and said, I'm selling the house. She paused, her eyes flickering. What? I'm moving to Montana. I've already started the process. Montana. What about Mom and Dad? What's going to happen to them? She asked, stunned. The first thing she thought of was what would happen to them, not why I was leaving. They'll figure it out, I said. They're adults. Or they can live with you. You're getting married anyway. She looked away. They're not in a position to buy their own place right now, Ava said. I know, I replied. I've been paying for everything for the past 3 years. Mortgage, bills, groceries, all of it. I knew you were helping, but helping means they contribute too, Ava. But they didn't contribute anything. I wish I could help, but, I haven't started working yet. And after I get married, she muttered, I'm just stating the facts, Ava. I'm selling the house. I'm moving. And the reason is Mom and Dad. Olivia, did they do something? You're acting strange. I thought about telling her everything. But I chose silence. I need a change. My new office is close to Montana. If the house sells quickly, they'll have to find their own place. They can stay with me, she said reluctantly. Then added, though the wedding's still a while away. That evening when I returned home, they were talking about what they bought during their shopping trip at dinner. I quickly finished my meal and went up to my room. I sat at my desk and got to work. I arranged moving companies, opened new bank accounts. With every step, I felt stronger. The days passed quickly. By the end of the week, the house was officially listed for sale, while Mom and Dad were out having breakfast with Ava and her boyfriend, Natalie, came by and professionally staged and photographed the house. We'll hold an open house on Sunday, Olivia, she said. We'll likely get a few offers by Monday. Will anyone be home on Sunday, she asked. I haven't told them yet, but I will soon, I replied. But that as soon came much sooner than I expected. The next day, when I got home from work, Dad was red with anger in the living room. Mom was beside him, rubbing her hands together, her face a mix of hurt and fury. Ava sat quietly in the background. I and Dad's hand was the for sale sign Natalie had placed in the yard. Without saying a word, I walked past them and headed upstairs. What is this, Olivia? Dad shouted. As you can see, I'm selling the house, I said, climbing the stairs. They followed behind me. You can't sell the house without asking us, he yelled. I turned around and looked at Mom, Dad, and Ava. Well, the house isn't yours, I said. This is my house. The deed has only my name on it. It belongs entirely to me. No child has the right to throw their family out onto the street. Dad snapped, I'm just selling what belongs to me. What you do next is your decision, I said, and walked into the kitchen, but they followed me there too. The photos are taken. The listing is live. The open house is scheduled for Sunday. This Sunday. Mom shouted. I just nodded. Where are we supposed to go? Dad asked. To a hotel, I said. I made a reservation. You won't be at the house between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So while strangers walk through our home, we're supposed to be out on the street. Mom said angrily. Am I home? I replied, calm but firm. My house. Ava. Say something to your sister. Mom cried desperately. Ava looked at me. Then at Mom, and said nothing. An hour later, Ava's boyfriend arrived. He stood quietly, looking embarrassed, trying to find middle ground. Ava said, selling the house feels a bit extreme. I told you, the new place is closer to my job. It's a good move for me, I said. Her boyfriend cleared his throat, hesitantly. As if to say, I'm here too. I turned to look at him. Considering the current market, moving to Montana sounds like a good opportunity and makes sense for your future, he said. I nodded. At least someone agreed with me, even if it wasn't my family. You have 1 month, I said. Because the sale will close in a month. How are we supposed to find a place in a month? Mom exclaimed, jumping up. I stood too and faced her directly. I found a place and made all my plans in just a week. You have an entire month, I said. Then sat back down. At least postpone the move a little, Mom pleaded. I shook my head. No. The market is reasonable right now. Missing this opportunity wouldn't make financial sense. Since when do you care more about money than your family? Dad said harshly. Honestly, I wanted to say, since you started hiding money from me to buy a house, but I kept quiet. Sunday came in the blink of an eye. After dropping my parents off at the hotel, I was driving back when Natalie called. We have an offer, $885,000. If you want, we could negotiate it up to a clean $900,000. No, I said. Let's wrap it up quickly. By the time I got home, we had signed the purchase agreement. 3 days later, I had already found a new home in Montana. Now came the sorting and packing. Some things would stay, some would be sold, some donated, and others thrown away. I donated some clothes from my closet to a thrift store. I kept the ones suitable for work. The new house I rented had 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. Larger furniture would be sold. Some paintings would stay worn out. Items were going to the trash * within a week. I was almost completely ready. My books were boxed up, my belongings packed in suitcases. We wrapped the photos in bubble wrap. Every box was labeled carefully. I had received a promotion at work. And that same week, my parents had finally started looking for a new home. My mom circled listings in one newspaper, my dad in another. Every option was either too expensive or too small. Ava and her boyfriend were also looking for a place together. Mom would say, "Should we just move in with Ava?" But Ava kept brushing it off and walking away awkwardly. Then one evening, I came home to find my parents waiting for me, clearly upset. I walked into the living room and sat down. They sat across from me. Moments later, Ava and her boyfriend joined us. Ava began to speak. "Isn't all of this happening too fast, Olivia? What exactly is happening too fast?" I asked. "This whole career shift? Moving to a new city? Millions of people do it every day." My mom looked me in the eye and said, "We're disappointed in you, Olivia. You're literally kicking us out." There it was, that word, disappointment, and in that moment, the words spilled out of my mouth, laced with years of buried feelings. Disappointment? Like what you said to Jack. She's a disappointment. A failure. A useless mess. She doesn't deserve anything. That kind of disappointment? Dad froze. Mom simply closed her eyes. "Yes, I heard everything. Your conversation with Jack. What you really think of me, how you belittle me. How you proudly call Ava the star of the family. How you secretly hid money from me. How you mocked the cars I bought." Ava stood up suddenly. "Mom, she began, but then stopped. She had no words. I came home early that day. My presentation went perfectly. I wanted to share the good news with you, to celebrate. But you ruined everything." Mom, Dad slowly stood and walked over to me. "My daughter," I stood too, looking him straight in the eyes. "I heard you, too, Dad. You said, there are two great things about living here: she doesn't interfere with us, and I can save a ton of money. In a couple of years, we'll have enough to buy a nice house. Those were your words." Dad took a small step back. "Olivia, it's not that we don't appreciate what you've done," he muttered. "Really? Then let me show you exactly how much appreciation you've shown me." I pulled a paper out of my bag. I had written everything down, line by line. Mortgage payments, $18,400 utility bills, $14,200 groceries and household expenses, $30,500 car insurance, cell phone bills, uncovered medical costs, $28,375 home repairs and renovations, $31,900. This is the contribution you so deeply appreciated. This is how much I've covered, just in the past year. Unpaid debts. I kept reading from the paper. Mom's cosmetic dental treatment, $8,400 money you used on the trip to visit Ava last winter, $13,900. I looked up. You didn't come to my graduation because you chose to go on vacation instead. My dad looked away. Ava stared at me in shock. What? They told me, Olivia didn't invite us to her graduation because she was ashamed of our bankruptcy. I nodded. Of course they did. To turn you against me, and me against you. They've always tried to pit us against each other, Ava. My mom stood up, her voice sharp. We raised you both equally. I asked quietly, without a smile, was it equal? When you celebrated every one of Ava's birthdays but forgot mine 3 years in a row. Was it equal when you went to her graduation, but skipped mine? Everyone fell silent. But you could feel it, the thousands of words circling in everyone's head. No one said a word. I took a deep breath. I don't want anything from you anymore. I just want you to understand why I'm leaving. I turned to Ava. She was sitting in the corner, eyes full of tears. Quietly, she stood up. I didn't know, Olivia, but now I do. The regret in her eyes hurt me, but also brought a strange sense of peace. I'm moving once the sale is finalized, I said. And you have 3 days. I grabbed my bag. Turn to face my parents one last time. You can stay here until the deal is closed. But once that day comes, everything will be over. I turned quietly and walked toward the door, just as Ava looked at her fiancé and whispered, "My parents can stay with us for a few days." My mom immediately hugged her, bursting into tears. But I didn't turn back. That evening, I packed the last of my belongings from my room. 3 days flew by in the blink of an eye. My parents had moved out the day before, into the place Ava had arranged. I returned to my home one last time. Went upstairs to my room. Stared at the empty walls. In the stillness of that room, the memories began playing one by one in my mind. Then the door opened. Ava stepped in. "I figured you'd be here," she said. "I came to help, but looks like everything was moved yesterday." She lowered her head. "Olivia. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was like this." "It's not your fault, Ava," I said gently. "Will we stay in touch? Still see each other?" she asked. "I'd like that. We can video chat, maybe. Have weekly coffee dates," I replied. She smiled. "I'd love that." We walked through the house one last time together. Checked every door. Pulled the curtains closed. As we left, I handed Ava the spare key. While hugging me, she whispered in my ear, "Take care of yourself. In Montana." "You too, stay safe," I said quietly. I got in the car and drove off. Montana welcomed me with open skies and every shade of green. Within a week, I had settled into my new home. 2 weeks later, I started work. Just as everything was finally falling into place, my phone rang. It was Ava. She and Keith had gotten married. We chatted a bit. Then I asked, "How are things over there?" After a pause, she answered, "Tough," she admitted. "Mom and Dad are still staying with us. They've looked at a few apartments, but there's always some excuse." Her voice lowered, "And they're not contributing anything financially. Keith's getting really stressed." "That happened with me too," I said quietly. I hung up and sat at the small kitchen table in the corner. A low hum echoed in my head, thoughts circling endlessly. Guilt. It had slowly crept back onto my shoulders. Had I passed the burden on to Ava? That night, I found a letter in the mailbox, my father's handwriting on the envelope. I turned it over in my hand, but didn't open it. I set it aside and picked up a book. I dove into someone else's life. Tried to clear my mind. And for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night. The next morning, my work phone rang. A video call, my boss, Amelia. After the usual, "How are you?" exchange, her tone shifted. "I think there's something I should tell you," she said. "I'm listening," I replied. "Your parents called here asking for your new address." I froze. "What did you say to them?" I asked quickly. "As per company policy, we never disclose employee information." I made that clear. "But your mother was especially persistent." I took a deep breath. I had told Amelia everything before. She hadn't judged me then. She wasn't judging me now either. "If you ever need help, I'm here," she said. "Thank you, Amelia," I replied sincerely. Then I quickly messaged Ava, "Mom and Dad called my work asking for my address. Can you remind them they're not supposed to do that?" Her reply came immediately, "Already did. Won't happen again." Since moving into my new home, I had made only one friend. He lived upstairs. His name was Davin Anderson. We first met in the elevator. Turned out he was also an architect. Our friendship grew naturally. Sometimes we ran into each other at the entrance, sometimes at the store, sometimes we'd go on weekend walks. He never asked too many questions. Never once said, "Why did you move here?" I simply told him. "My job's nearby." That was enough. 6 months had passed since I moved. I had grown used to my new home and to Montana. One day, I was sitting on the balcony watching the snow fall. A message came from Davin, "Want to go for a walk in the snow tomorrow?" I smiled. "Sure," I replied. December arrived, wrapped in snow and holiday lights. At work, I was promoted to team lead. My bond with Davin deepened. We both carried emotional weight of our own. He, too, had had problems with his family. But our relationship didn't rush, it grew slowly, built on trust and mutual respect. Every Saturday, I had a video call with Ava. Her marriage was going well, but Mom and Dad were still living with them. Of course, just like with me, they were causing some issues. Recently, I finally read the letter from my mom. It said, "Come back, let's live together." But I wasn't going back. On Christmas Eve, Davin invited me out to dinner. Ava asked, "Should I come visit you?" But I chose a third option. I decorated my home, set a small table, and invited Davin and my boss, Amelia. A day before Christmas, a bouquet of flowers arrived at my door. On the card was Ava's handwriting, "I wish you were with me, but I also want you to live your life. I miss you, sis." I was just about to call her when my phone rang. A familiar number appeared on the screen. Dad. For a moment, I didn't want to answer. But then my finger automatically hit the answer button. I quickly put it on speaker and set it on the table. "Hello. Olivia." His voice was slow, hesitant, but familiar. "Merry Christmas." I took a deep breath and quietly replied. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Your mother and we're moving," he said over the phone. "We've rented an apartment near Ava's place." I paused for a second. "I'm glad to hear that, Dad." Silence. I could tell he wanted to hang up, but couldn't. Then he hesitantly added, "Rent's more expensive than we expected." "I'm sorry." Another silence. Then, slowly, "Olivia. I know things ended badly, but we're your family. Your mother and we need help." I took a deep breath. "Dad. I'm not in a position to offer financial support. I've moved to a new city, started a new life. But we're family." "Yes, we are. But I only want a relationship built on love and respect. I can't help with this. Not financially, Dad." There was silence. Then his voice changed. A mix of restrained anger and disappointment. "Merry Christmas, Olivia." I replied softly, "Merry Christmas, Dad." The call ended. On Christmas Eve, the house was filled with the smell of warm food. Davin had arrived early. He stepped into the kitchen and quietly helped me set the table. As he arranged the salad bowl, he asked, "Did your dad call?" I nodded. "Yes." This time, he directly asked for money. I looked away. But he said nothing. He just stayed beside me. When the guests arrived, the house was filled with laughter. Drinks were poured, plates were shared. At that small table, we had become a family, not by blood, but by choice. The evening came to an end. My guests had left, all except Davin. We cleared the table together and then stepped out onto the balcony. We sat in silence, watching the city lights ahead. Just then, my phone rang. It was my parents. I silenced it and simply watched. The fireworks bursting in the sky were no match for the peace growing inside me. For the first time in a long time, I truly felt at peace. Yes, I had sold my house. But what I gained was priceless. I had built a life. And that life was mine. Thank you for listening to my story all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, a real family is the one you choose with your heart.